This is Tanisha, and you're watching Rye and Reviews. As you can see, my partner in crime, Courtney, is not here today. He had other fun things to attend to, so it'll just be me giving you a review of Insecure Episode 3. But before we get into the review, let's start out with the rye. So for this week, I made what is called a highball, and it's a really simple recipe. It has the rye, the whiskey, of course, and ginger ale, and that's really it. So 2 ounces of rye and 6 ounces of the ginger ale, and it's pretty good if I do say so myself. So let's get into the review. Where do I begin? Because there was a lot in this episode. And I think for the most part, the major theme, at least for me, for the episode, is everyone coming up against fantasy versus reality. So we started out the episode with Issa sleeping in Daniel's bed, which is just the biggest can of worms, and to me, a big no-no. But she's in his bed, things get heated, and it turns out it's not the real thing. Like, they were about to get into it, but it turns out that it was something that she was fantasizing about, and basically you can tell that there's sexual tension between them. Now, I think it's obvious that they already had such sexual tension, so sleeping in the man's bed doesn't really help that sexual tension. It just puts more temptation in front of you. But clearly, she has feelings for him. She trusts him, and so she wants to do this. But it was a lot. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, this isn't going to end well. And we'll get there, but of course it doesn't. But yes, so her fantasy is, of course, having sex with Daniel. But throughout the episode, she keeps telling friends that she really wants to stay with him in terms of staying in his home because she wants to see where this thing is going between the two of them. She feels like they're getting closer and they're creating this intimacy, so she wants to stay with him. Now, I will say that I was very surprised that she actually went through with this whole property manager position. I thought she was going to blow it off. She wasn't going to look into it because of her feelings for Daniel, but I will give her props for actually going through with it, checking it out, seeing if it's something for her. Now, it sounds like it's going to be a lot. And as Daniel pointed out, she's trying to work full-time, do Lyft, and do this property manager job. It sounds like she's going to have a lot on her plate, but it does give her independence, and it looks like she'll have a nice place to live. So it is a viable option. So I'm glad that she at least took that next step. But as her friends pointed out, this whole Daniel thing, it's just like, it's something that you want it to work out so badly because you could tell that they have feelings for each other, but something just doesn't quite curl over between the two of them. And so towards the end of the episode, we see why. Now, for me, this episode revealed a lot for me about Daniel. So let me just talk about his fantasy versus the reality. So Daniel, don't get me wrong, I think he's talented. I think his character is probably really good at what he does, but he obviously needs some help. And in this episode, you can see that, okay, he took Issa's advice. He reached out to Khalil. Khalil is giving him some feedback on what this guy Spider will like. And instead of being happy with getting a boost, getting, an in with this guy he's been dying to work with, he sort of like blows it up. Now, I get it. As an artist, you want to protect your craft, you want to protect your work, and blah, blah, blah. But to try to, step on that relationship in order to prove a point, like, oh, my work is just as good as what you did, or I think he'll really, it wasn't the right way to go about things. And as you can see, based on Khalil's reaction, I think he probably burned a bridge there. So what did he really get out of it? So yes, he got the in. He got Spider to recognize that his work was just as good as Khalil's, but he might have, potentially ruined a friendship and also a business opportunity. So to me, this reveals that Daniel is very prideful, that he doesn't know how to take a step back in order to move forward, and that's going to get him in trouble. And also, it shows in this episode when Issa was pointing out the fact that he was wrong, the fact that he should probably apologize to Khalil for doing what he did, he lashes out. So Daniel, and this is what a lot of guys do, Daniel comes off as a nice guy, when Issa was saying that she was going to move out, she was going to do this property manager position, he was like, that's a lot. You'll have to do a lot. I like you here. You should stay. Stepping up as a nice guy. Great. But in reality, it's revealed in the episode that he has this like lingering resentment almost of Issa. And what's the line? Because I had to write this down. He said, I always save you from some shit. I always save you from some shit. Now, I get it. He was upset about the Khalil stuff, but you don't say that to people. And the fact that he had that in the clip, so to speak, just lets me know that even though he's trying to come off as a nice guy, he resents Issa, or he sees himself as her savior, that he doesn't really see her as his equal. And the fact that, she was giving him legitimate advice, and don't get me wrong, Issa's professional life is a hot mess, but there's a way to provide constructive criticism, and clearly what he was doing by putting down Issa, saying like, you're the last one to be giving me professional advice, it was just out of line. It was out of pocket. So yes, he was upset, but this episode to me revealed more about his character. He's prideful. He lashes out at other people when he's upset. And even though he comes off as the nice guy, he really isn't. It sounds like he'll do something nice, but he'll hold it over you when the moment comes, like the moment of truth comes. So yeah, I peep you, Daniel. Like, you're not as nice. You're not this like clean cut, humble guy. You have some issues there that you need to work out. So let's move on from Daniel and talk about Miss Molly. I love Molly, and I really like the fact that she was so excited to work at this new firm. It looks like if it's not all black, it's predominantly black firm. So great. But I don't know. I mean, I could sort of see this coming. The fact that I'm not sure the state of this firm in comparison to her old firm. I imagine the old firm, and that is the predominantly white firm, had a lot more resources. But she's coming up against her own fantasy versus reality situation. So it seems like she thought like, man, I'm going to be working around all of these black attorneys. This environment is going to be so great. I'm not going to feel like the outsider. I'm going to be really comfortable. But it turns out that she's used to a certain way of doing things, and she was comfortable in doing those things at her other firm. And the fact that she has to make an adjustment at this new firm, it's a lot for her to take. Now, this gets us into this conversation about black-owned businesses, which is another can of worms that you can do its own video about. I can see where she's coming from. I can see where everybody's coming from. So on the one hand, yes, would it have been nice if the black firm had its stuff together in certain areas, if it was more modernized, if it was doing things in a certain way? Yes. But at least as it stands, I don't know. It's just like, okay, so they use a courier instead of this, electronic thing. They store boxes at their office, but in terms of their actual work product, like, are they giving good services to their client? Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. And she obviously went there because they have a good reputation in the professional community. So I get it. She wants them to be where her other firm already is, but I don't know. I feel like you have to like sort of roll with the punches to a certain extent, and you can't let what you're used to get in the way of a really good opportunity. So there's a reason why she went to this firm. They probably have a very good professional opportunity, and I don't want her to shoot herself in the foot over this awkwardness that she feels about this new firm. But it already looks like she's going to get into some trouble, because while she's judging the firm on what they lack, it seems that behind her back that there may be a little bit of judgment of her and where she has come from. So the guy, I can't remember his name, but her new boss or her new colleague made that comment about, oh, where you're from, your meetings start on time and all of that. So he made that comment. I think there's going to be a little tension there. So she needs to be very careful, especially since it's so early in what she says and what she does. Like, yes, it's going to be an adjustment period, but I don't want her to blow the whole thing up. So I thought that was very interesting, and I'm interested to see where they're going to go with this storyline. What else? Okay, so in terms of what else, I also thought that the ending of the episode was really interesting. Again, you know, Daniel trying to make it up to Issa, saying, I only said that because I was upset about the Khalil situation. Again, it's a nice guy thing to do, but it wasn't really an apology. For the record, an apology has to have the words "I apologize" in it, and he did what a lot of guys do. The fact that he tried to apologize with sex, it just made me feel a kind of way. Like, no, dude, like you said some really hurtful things, and Issa, like, why did you let him off the hook? Like, what he said to you in terms of, let me get that quote here. I always save you from some shit. Like, that was deep. Like, you just don't let that go. You should have called him out like she did at the restaurant. I give it to her there. But she should have called him out on that. Like, what does that even mean? Like, we need to talk about this. And certainly don't go back to his bed after he's saying something crazy like that. So, of course, he getting all, sexy Steve, rubbing on Issa, and she gives in, but she realizes that the reality of the situation is it doesn't feel as good as she thought it was going to feel because she's identified one of the biggest probably issues between them is that either through her own failure to be transparent about her feelings or his pride or his fake nice guyness, that there's a disconnect between them. And yes, they might have sexual chemistry at times, but unless they can move past their other issues, it's never going to click quite right. And so I'm actually glad that she spoke up and didn't just, get down with Daniel, have sex with Daniel because it would feel good, because she recognized like there's something missing here, that this doesn't feel as good as I thought it was going to feel. And I thought that was really mature on Issa's part. So this was a really good episode. It had a lot in it, and I'm really liking where they're going, and I like the fact that they're giving everybody well-rounded storylines so we can get a little bit more about them. And I like the fact that this veneer on Daniel, this nice guy veneer, is getting knocked down a peg. What else? I think that's about, the Issa and the job situation. I mean, that's another thing. She was at the job fair, and they were, she saw this great organization that is connected to music. I'm like, this is your fantasy. This was Issa's fantasy, that organization with the kids. Like, this is your fantasy. Why wouldn't you tell them that you're looking for a job? Because you should be looking for a job. So I'm glad that she has seemingly maybe come to the realization that there are other opportunities out there. But I also like the fact that she sort of, when she was interviewing the other black woman for the job, and she said like, oh, you've been here for 5 years, you must really like it a lot. And Issa, you could see that her wheels were turning, like, I've been here for 5 years, but I don't really like it. And it's just another commentary on the fact that you can get into a professional space, and even though you might be comfortable, that doesn't mean you actually like that job. And I think that's why Daniel's words about her and her career opportunities, her career development were so hurtful, because he did point out, like, you don't know what it's like to have a passion for your job. And that's true to a certain extent. And he could have said it in a different way and not in anger, but it's true. And I think that I really want Issa to move forward with looking into this other opportunity and not just staying in a rut. So, that's all that I have for right now. I really enjoyed this episode. I give it an A for this week. I give it a solid A. I thought it was great. Stay tuned for next week. We will be back. Oh, and I should say that we didn't get a chance to upload the review for the second episode, but we were having a bit of technical difficulties. So that review is going to be a little bit late, but you should see it soon. So next week we will be back reviewing episode 4, and Courtney will be here, and we'll have a good time. So I will see you then. And try a highball in the meantime. Bye.